In this section, we'll understand what is Terraform, a very high level overview of Terraform, not deep dive, and mainly for beginners. We'll also understand how to download and run like Azure CLI commands, creating resources in Azure cloud using Terraform code, right? Because we can use Terraform to spin up virtual machine, to create virtual networks, subnets, to deploy Azure firewall. And not only in Azure, you can use Terraform to create resources in AWS, Azure, or Google, all three different leading public cloud computing providers on-prem, right? Because Terraform is basically open source, has a COP language, infrastructure as a code. So you can use Terraform to create resources in any environment, right? And that's one of the reasons why Terraform is so popular nowadays. Even though, AWS has its own automation method, that is AWS Cloud Formation. So you in AWS you can use AWS Cloud Formation. In Azure also we have Azure Resource Manager, Resource Manager, and in Google also we have Google Cloud Deployment Manager, right? In Google, but like even for engineers like cloud solution architect, engineer, it's very difficult because if you are working with AWS, then you'll have to learn cloud formation. For Azure, then Azure Resource Manager. For Google, Cloud Deployment Manager, right? But Terraform is like uniform. I mean, like you can use Terraform to create resources or deploy resources in any environment, right? So instead of like learning three different technologies, I mean like cloud formation, resource manager, deployment manager, wanted to learn a single Terraform HashiCorp language, and it's very easy to learn even, right? It's not very complex, and there are a lot of resources available over the internet, so you can use those resources, right? So even you don't have to very much expert in coding and all that, because a lot of resources are available. Simply you should be familiar with Terraform basic commands, right? And how you can download and run Terraform in your personal computer, laptop, how to execute like commands, right? Even you can use ChatGPT, right? So if you want to use ChatGPT to write down Terraform code, then you can use ChatGPT, right? Codes written by ChatGPT probably might not be 100% correct all the time. So if you know basics, you know like how to debug, how to change variables. So even you can use ChatGPT. And I'm going to show you like how we can use ChatGPT to create resources in Azure cloud. But Terraform is only for resource creation, deployment, infrastructure as a code, right? So you cannot compare Terraform with uh, Ansible or REST APIs. No, they are for different purpose, right? For configuration, or for example, just you can understand this way. We can use Terraform to spin up a Windows or Linux virtual machine in maybe in Azure cloud, right? Now, further, if you want to configure like virtual machine, you want to do some automation, right, inside it, then for that, yes, like you should be knowing like Ansible, REST APIs, or maybe some other scripting. So Terraform is for resource creation, deployment, bulk resource creation. If you want to create virtual networks, 20, 30 virtual networks in Azure cloud, subnets, you want to deploy Azure firewall there. Even if you want to, like enable or disable some features or options of Defender for cloud, yes, you can use Terraform for those tasks. In fact, okay. So because so far, like we have created resources, we have deployed firewalls, spin up virtual machines using Azure portal. So the very first time I'm going to show you how we can use Terraform for resource creation. So it's very much like uh, practical topic, not too much theory, right? Just like high level overview about Terraform, and then straight away I will uh, take you to Terraform official website. I will show you how we can download Terraform, how we can set environment variable to run Terraform, and basic Terraform command like Terraform apply, plan, init, validate, Terraform destroy. Right? Hardly there are 5 commands, important commands of Terraform. So I will make you understand like all those 5 commands, right? And then finally we'll end up this session with the this chat GPT also. So very much like practical based session, not too much theory. So first thing first. So first I'm going to explain like Terraform, then Azure CLI, and finally we'll use any code editor. And if there is no code editor even, no problem whatsoever. Recommended if you have installed any code editor software on your laptop like Visual Studio Code, for example, that's Microsoft recommendation even. So if you have like the code editor installed on your computer, so much better, right? Because if we use any code editor, so there is very like least probability of like doing some syntax error, right? Even like a lot of commands like are already there in fact. So just you type initial of any command and then automatically a list are like shown there and you can select command from there. So better if you use any code editor, but I don't have any code editor installed on my laptop, so even I can use Notepad. No worries, Notepad Plus, right? To write down Terraform code, no problem whatsoever. Okay, but whenever you are working in production environment, definitely you should use any code editor software. Like the Visual Studio Code is the best one, in fact, right? All right, so first thing first. So first, like we are going to understand what is Terraform. HashiCorp Terraform is basically infrastructure as a code, but what is a provider, how we can start working with Terraform. So I'm going to start from there, just not too much theory, and then straight away we'll see like in action, like everything, starting from like downloading, installing, running Terraform, and then writing down code, resource creation in Azure portal. Then we'll do that verification also whether resources created in Azure portal or not. So we'll do that verification from GUI mode. Okay. HashiCorp Terraform is an infrastructure as a code tool that lets you define both cloud and on-prem resources in human readable configuration files that you can version, reuse, and share. So as I mentioned, Terraform code very easy to understand, easy to write, and a lot of resources are available. So you can use those resources even already written codes. In fact, we can download that from Terraform site, even from Microsoft official website. Terraform can manage low-level components like compute, storage, and networking, right? As well as high-level components like DNS entries and software as a service features, a wide use cases, right? How does Terraform work? So Terraform creates and manages resources on cloud platforms and other services through their APIs, application programming interfaces. Providers enable Terraform to work with virtually any platform or service with an accessible API. So probably you might not be able to understand what are providers in Terraform. So hang in there, like I'm going to explain like what is provider or what are providers in Terraform, and critically also I'm going to demonstrate you how we can mention name of provider in our code. So basically, provider is middleman, mediator, translator, right, between Terraform and the target API, application programming interface. So a provider in Terraform is a plugin, a software that enables interaction with an API. Provider plugins like the AWS provider or Azure provider act as a translation layer that allows Terraform to communicate with many different cloud providers, databases, and services. So there are too many providers supported and available by like in the Terraform. And then there are some Terraform commands: Terraform init, Terraform plan, Terraform apply, and there are a couple of more commands like Terraform validate and even Terraform desktop, right? But where do we use these commands? How to use these Terraform commands? Purpose of Terraform commands. So as I mentioned, like it's better like if I just show you critically, right, step by step, that would be much more better, right? So straight away, I'm just taking you to Terraform official site. From there, we'll download Terraform first. We will run Terraform on this, like I'll run on my laptop, right? And then I will show you how we can use these Terraform commands, actual use cases, right? So in order to download Terraform, just open its official website page, terraform.io. It's not com, right? io.i.o, and then click here download, right? And now select operating system. I'm using Windows, so I'll select Windows, and the latest version is 1.5.4. Click here to download Terraform, right? So I'm going to download Terraform. It's very simple and hardly 50 or 60 MB in size. Will not take more than a minute. So I'm going to download in a folder, Azure software folders, empty directory. So 1.5.4. Okay, save. So 19 MB even is not like 50 or 60 MB. Right click and extract. It's a zip file. So Terraform, right, is the file here. So there is no need to, unrestricted file is 60 MB in size, and there is no need to install exe software. Even you can like put this exe anywhere, maybe to the same location where we have just extracted, or anywhere, like I mean like you can even copy this Terraform, and you can paste anywhere to any location. But if Terraform path is like this, f colon Azure softwares, and then the directory and Terraform here extracted file, right? So if I just open my command prompt, let me show you, minimize all the window, and if I run here Terraform version, just to do a quick verification whether Terraform is successfully installed or not. So see here, like an error message, Terraform is not recognized as an internal or external command operable. Why? Because exe file is in like different directory, not in the same directory, right? So like now I have two options. One option, I can change directory, I can go to that location where exe file is, and then I can run Terraform command, right? And if really if you don't want to do like same step every time, because in order to execute that Terraform exe file, every time you'll have to be in the same directory at the same location. So in Windows, like best practice is what? setting path in environment variables, right? My exe file is like where f drive Azure software Terraform, right? And very let me just rename this folder, and this zip file is not required, so even you can remove that, and I'll name it only Terraform. No issues, right? So what is path now? Azure softwares Terraform and then terraform.exe. Just copy path from here and open system environment variable, right? From your system properties, or just you can type system environment variables here, right? Edit the system environment variables. And why I'm doing this, just to because I want like to run Terraform anywhere, no matter like in which directory I am. If once path is set, then you can run Terraform from any directory, from any folder, right? So we have option here, environment variables, click, and then select path. Path is selected, and now edit, and path is selected here, click edit, and new path, right? And paste the path here. Okay, so set, okay, okay, close command prompt, open again, run the command terraform version, and this time yes, worked fine for me, like Terraform version 1.5.4. So we have successfully finished step number 1. So step number 1 is what? Download Terraform for Windows and extract to any folder. And then step number 2, set path and system variables, right? Done. Now we have successfully finished like step number 1 and step number 2. What next now? So next like is download and install Azure CLI command line interface, right? Because we are not going to log into Azure portal even from graphical user interface mode. So once Azure CLI tool is a tool, basically software, it's a software tool. For AWS also we have AWS CLI tool, right? So once tool, either Azure CLI or AWS CLI tool or software is installed on your laptop or desktop, so you can execute Azure or AWS commands from command prompt, right? If I just show you, because on my computer already AWS tool is also installed. So if I run AWS configure, so AWS tool is already installed on my laptop. So this command, yes, executed successfully, asking about the access key ID secret, and then very much like this CLI will be connected with my AWS account, and then I can run any AWS command, right? I can create S3 bucket, I can just put some data there, I can list like all S3 buckets. Similarly, for Azure, we have Azure CLI, right? So for that purpose, first like you'll have to download Azure CLI MSI tool or software and install on your computer. So just open Google and type Azure CLI download for Windows and click on the first link, how to install the Azure CLI. And here like we have the current version is 2.51.0. So whether you want to install on Windows So click here, latest release of the Azure CLI. Is approximately 57 MB in size. So you can just double click to install Azure CLI. I'm going to cancel this because Azure CLI is already installed on my laptop. So I'm not going to install. Hit down cancel. But if you do not have Azure CLI installed on your laptop or desktop, then uh, perform installation. Just next, right? And once Azure CLI is installed, then the next step number 4, open command prompt, right? And run a command here, is it login, Azure login, right? So what will happen automatically? uh, like Azure login page will open in portal and you will be prompted to input your username and password. It's just authentication, right? Because you cannot use Azure CLI without successful authentication to your account. So since we are not going to perform any task directly from Azure portal, so from CLI, we can run this command Azure login to initiate a login process, in fact, right? And let me step by step also show you. So Azure CLI is already installed on my laptop. So straight away, I'm going to run AZ login command, right? And what I'm expecting, a browser like will open and I'll be asked to enter my username and password of Azure portal. And then after even you can close that browser, right? Hit down enter key here. So even you can see here like a web browser has been opened, right? Complete URL and it's asking to do the authentication, right? So I'll log in with my username and password, and now you have logged into a Microsoft Azure. You can close this window now. And if you want to see like Azure CLI documentation, you can do that, or simply just close this window from here. So my CLI successfully connected now. And even you can see here, let me expand so that you can see properly. It's a cloud name and also subscription ID, free trial, right? Tenant ID. So because now Azure CLI is successfully connected. Now, if you want, then you can run Azure CLI command here. Like for example, if I want to see VM list, even though like there is no virtual machine already deployed in my account, so output will be empty, right? Because there is no virtual machine. So what I'm expecting here, bracket without any resource, correct, right? What about Azure resource list? Resource list. So if like the resources in Azure portal, so yes, I can see a lot of resources, right? So we have like commands, Azure CLI commands. So if you want to use, then yes, you can use like command. If you want to see a storage account, so you can run is it storage account list. So we'll show all storage accounts, right? So this way, like we can execute Azure CLI commands. You can perform a lot of tasks from CLI also. Anyway, but our objective is like understanding Terraform, not like very much like knowing about Azure CLI commands, because CLI commands are very much self-explanatory. You will find commands list on Microsoft official website. You can like run all the commands this way, right? Not very conceptual, self-explanatory. Now, so what next now? So Azure CLI installed, authentication is successfully done. Now next, straight away, just start writing your write Terraform code. But where we can write the code, write Terraform code, but where? So best practice is like using any code editor software, like for example, Visual Studio Code, because Visual Studio Code has like studio has like oops, Visual Studio Code, because it is easily integrated with Azure portal, and even we also use Visual Studio Code when we create any app. And because once like application is created directly, we can push like those codes directly to Azure app service, because there are a lot of plugins or extensions, so easily we can connect Visual Studio Code with Azure cloud. And but why do we use like code editor in Terraform? Because if let's say we are going to write down code, right, and using just Notepad or Notepad plus, so even if there is any syntax error, so there's no help provided by Notepad or Notepad plus, right? Even let's say if you want to write down some code, so if generally if you, it's very much like TCL and other scripts. So normally uh, this will be another bracket, like ending closing bracket, I mean opening and closing. Let us assume like you have forgotten like to close the bracket, so Notepad will never prompt you like there is something wrong. But in any editor, if you just type a single, so automatically you'll see like another one typed automatically, and then you can write down like your statement inside it. So better like if you use any code editor, right? But for this lab demonstration, I'm not going to use any code editor tool. Even I don't have any code editor tool installed on my laptop, but you can get this Visual Studio Code downloaded and install on your laptop. If you really want to learn Terraform, you want to do practice of Terraform code, so yes, like download and install Visual Studio Code and then start writing down the code. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you like some basic uh, code, in fact, how you can write code and where you can save, and how you can make that code working properly, right? So here, like what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create a folder, maybe my codes or something, right? Or Terraform codes, Terraform codes, just a name, like in fact. And let me expand Notepad file. Okay, open this. So first I'll have to mention provider name, right? Or translation layer, in fact. So provider for Azure, and if you are not sure like what is provider name, so we can find this name from Terraform official website, and I'll show you like just hang in there how you can like find out all the information, because a lot of resources are available, right? You should be knowing like how to like run Terraform commands, how to install and download Terraform, but command wise you don't have to worry too much. So Azure RM is the name, and then uh, one more, not mandatory though, but sometime we get an error message like provider registration error message. So just to avoid that, I'm just writing here skip provider registration and true, right? So because sometimes like we get an error message even though this is not mandatory. So provider is mandatory, provider Azure RM, and then feature, and there is no proper syntax here, but anyway we are not using any code editor, so of course features, so default in fact, and then syntax is close. And then what I want to do, I want to just create a resource in Azure, right? So Azure RM underscore resource group, right? So my objective is to create a resource group here, and name of resource group, I'll what name I want to give. So name uh, it's a NetTech resource group, NetTech resource group, right? NetTech resource group, and also location, in which region, in which location we want to create. And I assume like you have basic knowledge, basic understanding of Azure, okay? And then close the bracket. So there is no proper format here. Formatting cannot be done in Notepad because we're not using any code editor. But somehow we just like written 2 or 3 lines. It's something like mandatory provider name. Second is not mandatory, optional, and then features like default. And what we want to do, we want to create resource where in which region, resource group basically with the name NetTech resource group, in which region, East US. So once you are ready with your code, right, then save this file, save as, and extension should be .tf, right? So file1.tf, and make sure you select all files, right? All files, good so far, and file1.tf, Terraform, save. File is saved here. Even you can remove or delete new text file, not required. So there is only one file with the extension .tf, right? But without plugins, uh, Terraform plugins, we cannot use Terraform for resource creation, and as such we have created empty directory or folder, Terraform codes, empty directory. There is no like plugin, there is no Terraform file or files, there are no files here, right? So once like you are ready with your code, Terraform code, so open CLI, and now run a command Terraform init, the first command, right? Let me clear a screen first. First command Terraform init, right? Initialize. And now see here, like Terraform initialize is an empty directory. The directory has no Terraform configuration files, right? Because we are not in the same directory. So before running this command, there has to be and there should be a file with .tf extension. So change the directory, and we created Azure software folder, right? And here another directory, Terraform code, and there is one file with the extension tf. See here. Now if I run the command Terraform init, no error message. And see here, finding latest version of HashiCorp, Azure Prem provider name here, and installing like plugins, and Terraform has been successfully initialized. All good. Okay, so let me show you the directory one more time, and now you can see here a directory with the name terraform.scl file, HashiCorp language file. Okay, because we have just written code here like saved with the name file1.tf. So the first command here is, now I'm just explaining Terraform commands. Okay, So first command, Terraform init, initialize. What it does, it downloads Terraform plugins and for the provider Azure, right? And then next command, Terraform, even you can run this command validate to validate the code, not mandatory though. Terraform plan will show like what is the plan, what resources will be created, and then Terraform apply, right? Required command. Plan is just will in fact a pre-check. What is the plan, like what resource or resources will be created in Azure portal, and apply means actual resource will be created. And now let's say you want to destroy like resources created with Terraform, then you can run Terraform destroy. Only five commands, mainly five commands here, right? Total how many commands? Five commands. Terraform init, validate, plan, apply, and destroy. That's it. Rest like only about the coding part, Terraform code. And for that, I'm going to show you because there are multiple ways. In fact, you will find like all codes written already. If you want to spin up a Windows virtual machine, Linux virtual machine, 2019 server, 2022 server, right? So we can easily find like all written Terraform codes, right? And then variables, of course, that can be easily changed, right? Size of virtual machine, in which region you want to deploy, what name you want to give to the resource group, virtual network group, network address, subnet address. And since like Terraform code means like readable text, in fact, so easily you can edit like those codes. You don't have to be very good in coding. Okay, good so far. So next command, what we are going to run, Terraform. Let me clear this screen. Terraform validate. Success, the configuration is valid, right? Next command, Terraform plan. So Terraform use the selected provider and is showing like what resource will be created, NetTech resource group will be created in which location, East US location, right? So it is the plan. So good so far. And finally, Terraform apply, right? So now finally we are going to create a resource group in Azure with the name NetTech resource group, right? Empty resource group in East US region. Okay, hit down enter and will take a couple of minutes. We'll prompt for a further confirmation whether you want to create a resource in Azure portal, yes or no. All right, that's it. And then let me quickly take you to Azure portal and resource group. Already there are resources already created in my resource group here. See, a lot of resource groups created, but also there is no NetTech resource group already created, right? And that's what we want to create from the CLI, NetTech resource group. Okay, so once like code is successfully executed, then we are going to see here a resource group, empty resource group with the name NetTech resource group. Similarly, you can use Terraform code to create virtual networks, subnets, to deploy virtual machines, Azure firewall, right? For any type of resource creation, you can use Terraform. So what is the status of the command? Look at this. Do you want to perform these actions? Yes, we are very much interested. So type here yes. So NetTech resource group in East US region. will be created. So we are expecting a new resource group, right? Will take less than a minute, and once command is successfully executed, then we'll see here a resource group created. Still, code is being executed basically. So it's creating and apply complete resource one added, zero change and zero tested. So can we see like from graphical user interface mode, refresh just one more time and look at the resource group now. Network resource group created Terraform by using Terraform in East US region. Can we delete like the created resource group from CLI? Yes. For that, the final command, last command, Terraform destroy. A final confirmation would be required here. And once you confirm that, so resource or resources created with Terraform will get destroyed. Not all resources, right? Not all resources, only resource or resources created with Terraform. So in this lab demonstration, we created a resource group only with the name network resource group. So once command is successful, that means we'll get rid of network resource group. Understood? So have you found like Terraform very complex? So answers no, in fact, it's not very complex, right? So just prepare infrastructure first, get your machine ready with Azure CLI and Terraform, right? So first step is like being ready with Azure CLI and Terraform, and then uh, either just write down your own Terraform code. You can take help from Microsoft documents, Terraform documents, or ChatGPT even. You can take help of ChatGPT, right? So either way, just get ready with your code, and once you are ready with the code, then five commands, maximum five Terraform commands, right? Five Terraform. First time like init command just to download plugins. But this Terraform init command you can execute only if the specified folder from where you are running this command has a file with extension tf. If there is empty directory and you try to run this command, so no, like command will never run. And see here it's asking enter a value. Yes, I want like resource and is a final before giving your consent. Even you can read what resource or resources will be deleted or destroyed. So destroy complete resource one destroyed, right? Deleted. Now if I refresh here, so the resource group is deleted now. All right. Now next, like how you can write your own code and how you can take help. So even like on Terraform website also, you'll find a lot of documents like Terraform CLI about plugins. Okay, and also if you Google like Terraform to create Azure VM, so the very first website like use Terraform to create a Windows VM virtual machine. On this page even you have like multiple options like subnets and because you understand like without a virtual network, without subnet, without uh, network security group, virtual machine cannot be spinned up in Azure cloud, right? So there has to be network infrastructure. And now you can see like here complete command or code. In fact, you can just copy and whatever like value you want to change. For example, here like RDP port is allowed. Okay, network address is 10.0.0.0/16. You want to change CIDR block or maybe address space, you can change that. You can also change the address prefixes like your subnet address, right? So you can like take help of Microsoft documents on right hand side. Even if you look at this, create a Linux VM in cluster, Linux virtual machine. So you have like a lot of resources like available on Microsoft side, or uh, open chat GPT, open AI, log in with your email ID, right? To open ChatGPT is absolutely free. And here in send message, let's say if I want write Terraform code to create new resource group in Azure, right? Enter. So you will find complete information, not only the code, even steps also. Look at this provider, exactly the same command I written in Notepad, empty here default, I mean fetcher. And here also you can see replace the value below with your desired configuration. Commented line, right? Group name, default is my resource group. You can change here location, default is US East. Even if you want like write Terraform code to create a VNet with address space 172.16.0.0/16 and two subnets with addresses 172.16.1.0/24 and 172.16.2.0/24, and click here. So it's generating code for you, and just simply copy and paste the code in your code editor, save as .tf file, and then run Terraform plan, then Terraform apply, two commands only, right? And even you will see here, like if the first time you are going to run, then Terraform init, Terraform apply, and not necessarily your file name should start with main, can be any name, but extension should be .tf. That's correct. And see here like code, okay. And let's just assume you want to spin up, write Terraform code to deploy Windows 2022 virtual machine in Azure, right? Of course, like a lot of information missing, means like in which region, in which virtual network, in which subnet Azure virtual machine should be spinned up. So default value will be taken, are used by ChatGPT, and we can easily replace like those default values. I mean like region, size, right? We can change that. Where it has gone. So write Terraform code, and here is the code, right? Virtual machine name, even username. Default is admin user. You can give any username. You can replace the password with your own password. Size, even if you want to use different size v3 or ds3, you can select that. You can change the region, even address space, subnet address, variables, right? You can change. So I hope you understand like basics of Terraform. So Terraform is basically infrastructure as a code to deploy resources, to create resources in any cloud, on premises, right? Because There are multiple providers supported by this HashiCorp Terraform and open source code. Okay. Even like when Terraform was not very popular at that time, also we used to use AWS cloud formation for automation purpose, for resource creation. But in Google, Google Cloud Deployment Manager, for Azure, then Azure Resource Manager, right? But Terraform is something like you can use in any environment, on premises, cloud, even any cloud computing provider. Of course, like provider name would be different. Instead of like provider Azure RM, then AWS provider will be used. In AWS, of course, virtual machine is known as EC2. Virtual network is basically VPC. Network security group is just security group. So you see like those differences, obviously, right? Not exactly same code or same language because of different terminologies, but the way how we like execute codes, how we use Terraform would remain same, no matter like what the provider is, right? So that's all for this introduction, like session. In fact, it was obviously introductory class, a high level overview of Terraform just to give you basic knowledge, basic understanding of Terraform. Okay.